You called on Congress to pass aid to help Americans struggling with inflation. Can you give us a sense of what that aid would do, what it would look like, and where you see sort of the limits of what the administration can do compared to Congress?
Well, certainly. Fighting inflation has been the president's #1 priority. He understands how challenging this is for families. Let me start off with some good news that we've been seeing recently. You know, gas prices have fallen now for 39 straight days, fallen by over 60 cents, actually. And there's now, stations all around the country where gas is actually selling for less than $4 a gallon. So that is some good news and moving in the right direction. But certainly the president has remained focused on getting this legislation passed through Congress that would lower the costs of some real pain points for families, prescription drugs, making sure that health care remains affordable. So those are some things that Congress could do and do right now that would help families coping with today's high prices.
I mean, talking about those high prices, I want to ask you about shrinkflation. I mean, people paying the same for less product. Talk us through sort of both why that happens, how it is allowed to happen, and what can be done to stop it.
Well, certainly when you go to the store, one way that retailers and sellers deal with high prices is they make things seem a little bit cheaper so people keep buying, or maybe they make them more affordable. I mean, the reality is that we are all recovering from a historic global pandemic. The kinds of price increases that Americans are facing are happening around the world. Other countries are also seeing historically high prices. And, everyone is trying to get through this period while, continuing to see a strong economy. So I understand that it is challenging for families, but again, there's some very good news in the fall in gas prices, which the president has been very much focused on.
You know, Heather, I was going through your official Twitter account, and it was a reminder of how many issues that are often not framed as economic issues are, in fact, deeply economic. So I think about the overturning of Roe versus Wade, the rollback of reproductive rights that we're seeing across this country. We talk about it a lot on this program, on lots of programs, as being a medical issue, as being a societal issue. It is also an economic issue. What's going to be the economic impact of what we're seeing across this country?
Well, here's the thing. Being able to fully participate in our society means being able to control your reproductive freedom and your reproductive choices. And that makes all the difference for, young women or, women all through their lives who are deciding when and how to get more education or take that job or support their families. Being able to control one's reproduction can have a big effect on family economic security. So we know that it is so important, but fundamentally it's important because this is about being able to fully engage in our society. It's about citizenship and the rights of self-control.
Heather, the country, the globe, sweltering, numerous heat advisories across the East Coast. Just today, yet another issue that is, of course, economic in nature. I want you to listen to what former Vice President Al Gore said today on Meet the Press. Get your thoughts on the other side.
Deniers are really in some ways similar to all of those almost 400 law enforcement officers in Uvalde, Texas, who were waiting outside an unlocked door while the children were being massacred. They heard the screams, they heard the gunshots, and nobody stepped forward. And God bless those families who've suffered so much. And law enforcement officials tell us that's not typical of what law enforcement usually does. And confronted with this global emergency, what we're doing with our inaction and failing to walk through the door and stop the killing is not typical of what we are capable of as human beings. We do have the solutions.
Heather, a global emergency, an existential threat. What is the economic cost of continuing to do nothing?
Well, as the president has said, climate change poses a clear and present danger to our society and our economy. And as he said last week, if Congress won't act, he will. The president has been focused on a whole of government approach to addressing climate change. It is so important, and it's so important that we not stand still, that we take action, as Al Gore just said. And so that is why the president has been so focused on doing things like, making it focusing on automobiles, making cars more efficient, focusing on making sure that as we move towards electric vehicles, that there are charging stations all around the country. One of the first things that he focused on in the bipartisan infrastructure law was executing on making sure that we move forward for electric vehicles by getting those charging stations around the country. All of these steps that the president has taken, and that, including new steps last week, really show the urgency and the dedication that he has to addressing this issue. Nothing could be more important for our economy as well as for the environment, but for our economy, making sure that we are focused on creating that clean energy that's going to create good jobs all across these United States.